This is Michael Anderson. He is one of 5,000 people currently living in Scotland with a dual sensory impairment. Michael works with Deafblind Scotland to raise awareness surrounding deafblindness and has recently won an award.
This is the award that I received from the Voluntary Action Fund earlier this year, and it's for doing all the voluntary work I have done for Deafblind Scotland over the past 15-16 years.
Michael was born with moderate hearing loss and started losing his sight at the tender age of 13. His genetic condition is known as Usher syndrome, and this can be caused by a number of recessive genes. Michael uses a guide dog communicator from Deafblind Scotland to get around.
My name is Suzanne Abati. I work for Deafblind Scotland as Operations Manager. For that, I am responsible for the Guide Communicator Service, which is a national service supporting deafblind adults to remain independent in their own communities, get out and about and undertake things that you and I do every day.
Ferris has been Michael's guide dog since 2006 and reveals that without him he would be lost. As well as independence, guide dogs allow blind people to live normal lives, but many other issues still exist for blind people who use guide dogs and white canes to get around. The outdoor world can be an intimidating place for people who can't see. One white cane user, Michael Reid, is currently staying at Summerford House for respite and speaks about some of the obstacles he has faced as a registered blind person.
When my sight was getting bad, I wouldn't use a stick. And I had been one time walking for the old Falkirk Infirmary. I don't know if you know where the Magpie is in Falkirk. I was going along that way and I walked smack into a lamppost.
Michael has also recently walked into a lamppost and says he has to focus hard when he's outside with Ferris.
My mother became aware of not being able to see well in dark places, and so she had me sent to an ophthalmologist, a consultant ophthalmologist, who looked at my eyes and said, yes, I have what is called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. A lot of people might recognise it more as tunnel vision, because what happens with that disease is that your side or peripheral vision goes away first, but you're still left with a central vision. And then eventually even the central vision begins to go away as well. My mother really was a person who was aware of my problems. The first thing she noticed when I was about 2.5 years of age was I wasn't speaking as well as my older brother. And she raised this with our GP, and who did the traditional test of quietly clapping his hand behind my head, which I did not respond to. And he said, yes, Michael has some hearing impairment.
Deafblindness is a hidden disability, and one of the main issues surrounding this is communication.
There's lots of difficulties. Probably the main one would be communicating with people. If you are a sign language user, say that somebody was born deaf and they lose their sight, their ability to communicate, the way they've always communicated has suddenly gone and they have to learn another method of communication. It's a hidden disability, so people can't, it's not obvious to people. People can't see that somebody is deafblind, so often people are mistaken for being rude or ignorant or uncooperative. So communicating with people and being in big groups, crowds of people, socialising is very difficult. So I think one of the main things to affect deafblind people would be the isolation, the social isolation that comes with it.
Now that I'm totally blind, I'm having to rely entirely on my hearing, and what I do find difficult is to pick up conversation where there's a lot of background noise. The background noise can be maybe a motor, or maybe traffic, or even in a room where music or TV's on in the background, or there'll be another conversation going on. And therefore, generally speaking, it's easier to communicate with people on a straightforward one-to-one basis with no other noise going on at the same time.
Accessing information is difficult, just even watching the news, reading the newspaper, reading your personal correspondence, knowing how much is in your bank, sell-by dates on things in the fridge, special offers in the supermarket, all of these things that we take very much for granted. So accessing that kind of information, not just written information, but verbal, environmental information, you know, have I got matching socks on today, that kind of thing. Are the clothes I'm wearing the right way round, or have they got a stain on them? So being able to tell all of these things that make a difference to somebody's self-esteem is a real difficulty. And also getting about safely. If you can't see and you can't hear, just getting out to the corner shop to buy a pint of milk is hugely challenging. We work constantly to raise awareness, but there's definitely a lot more work needs to be done to raise the awareness of deafblind people. Most people have heard of somebody who is blind or has a hearing impairment or is deaf, but very, very few people know about deafblindness and the effects that the combination of those two disabilities have.